Welcome to the Engineer to Lead podcast, where we feature leaders in engineering. On today's episode, our guest is Jay Broughton. He's the principal of Brougton and Associates. Welcome, Jay. Pleasure to have you here.
Sam, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out. I'm excited to be here.
No worries at all. So let's start off with a bit about your background, from your education into being an engineer and into running a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to college, University of Alabama, got my undergraduate degree in engineering, civil engineering. And then after graduation, I went to work for a pretty large regional infrastructure firm. We did a lot of work for the state DOTs. And that's really where I started to get a solid foundation for design, right? I started learning the real principles of it, why you do certain things. And then from there, I left and went to a series of smaller companies that really focused on private sector work, the site designs, the commercial developments, residential developments, and things like that. So, in each one of those steps, it was for a very specific reason, right? When I was at the large infrastructure firm, I was getting solid design experience. The next step, I was getting solid design experience and project management experience for a different set of projects. And then from there was another company where I stepped into more of an operations role. And that's where I really learned the importance of people, right? And then from there, you learn the business development components of it and how to really take on the collateral responsibility of running a shop. And that's how I got to the point where I was like, I'm ready to start our own company. So that's kind of how we got there. But it's been a very purposeful and methodical journey to get to this point.
Sure. So was there a particular reason you wanted to start your own business?
Man, that's a great question. It doesn't matter who you are or whatever it is, you have to know your why, right? So what's your why? What's your purpose? Man, one of the most impressionable memories I have as a child growing up was my dad was at every single football practice and football game, right? And he was able to do that because he was able to take steps that put himself in a position to control his own future. And that's what I wanted to do for my family. I wanted to make sure that I was being the best version of myself as a father and a husband. And the best way that I thought to do that was to start my own company. And when you start a company based on what's important to you, right? So to me, it's making sure that we are doing right by our clients, exceeding their expectations, doing that one extra step or these few extra steps that really make a difference. So that's really why. But you gotta have a vision, right? It doesn't have to be, by this age, I want to be in a C-suite position at this size company making this amount of money, right? That's a byproduct of your why. Your why could be anything from, you're motivated by leadership or whatever the case may be, but really understanding your vision and your goal will let you get there. So that's why and how we came to start our company.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your business and the projects that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we focus on mostly site civil private development, right? So a lot of subdivisions, industrial developments, distribution centers. That's really our bread and butter. We do some planning and some studies for municipalities in our area, but what we really focus on is private development in the southeastern United States. Like I said, anything from I guess an example would be like a distribution facility, like an Amazon fulfillment center, or anything to a multifamily development, to a residential subdivision. So pretty much everything that goes into that, your utilities, your infrastructure, your traffic studies and flood studies, environmental assessments, which have gotten to be a very big, component, a very big area of importance in our geographic location. So that's really what we do, what we focus on. But I guess more than that, we focus on adding value, right? We understand, we take a holistic approach to these projects, whatever they are, and we understand what it takes to make this project successful. We don't operate in a vacuum, right? Just because we got the necessary permits or whatever, it doesn't really matter if we're patting ourselves on the back thinking we're doing a good job if our client doesn't feel that same way and we're not helping them accomplish their goals, right? Your clients, until they get a certificate of occupancy, until they can open their doors, they're not doing anything but spending money, right? So you have to understand that from the get-go and be, how can I maximize this opportunity for my client? So they're kind of long-winded, but that's the type of projects we do, and kind of a overview of our approach to them.
Yeah, and I can see from what you said about your why and why you started the business, I can see that coming through in like your like company culture that you've created.
Oh, absolutely.
And how you feel about your clients, etc. Yeah, I love that.
But you got to take care of them, right? I mean, you got to take care of your clients. You got to take care of your people. And to me, it's really not hard as long as you do the little things right, and you stick to your core principles. You will be successful, right? Based on whatever your definition of success is, but being true to that will take you far.
Yeah. So what do you see are the particular challenges in what you do?
Ooh, well, they're always evolving. So I think kind of some of the, schoolhouse answers would be, not sure about upcoming, regulations or laws that might get passed or whatever, economic trends. But some of the biggest challenges that we've had are finding the right people to fill the right positions that we need, and then just kind of working out all the expectations there. There's been some, at least in the U.S., there's been some uncertainty with tariffs and the economy and what's going to happen with interest rates. But and while that does have an impact on growth and development, there comes a point in time where people have got to move forward regardless, right? So, but keeping up with get your hiring process and finding the right people to do whatever you need it to do, that's been a real challenge. The other things that we see that are, to me, game changers in the industry, artificial intelligence. It is everywhere, and it's an incredible tool, but it is a tool, right? Some of the benefits I see of it are, anything from back checking your narratives and your reports to summarizing local requirements, performance standards for design. It can even you can give it a prompt for a piece of property and a land use, and it'll generate a layout for you, meeting local design requirements in minutes. Think about the efficiency that you gain there. In this industry, I don't think you can ever take the people out of it. It doesn't make sense to do that. You can't automate this entire industry. But what is important is to make sure that we are staying up with current technological trends in order to maximize our output. It's still a business, right? So anytime you can do something that will, do three things, right? Save time, save money, or make money, right? And if you stay up with technological advances and they align with one of those three things, it really pays dividends in the long run.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you mentioned people there. That's something that I hear from business owners a lot.
Yeah.
Is dealing with people, clients or staff. I know you mentioned that before as something that's, that you mentioned is important. I wondered if you could just talk about that, just your views on that, or any particular insights.
That's one of my favorite topics. Okay, and it's one of the reasons it's so interesting is because there's a person's behavior in the workplace, right? And then there's the person's behavior in a personal setting, right? So what I'm getting at there is a lot of times people, they think they want one thing, but that's not really what they're good at. So when it comes to putting the right people in the right seats, I know it's kind of a cliche analogy, but if you need to fill a production role, right? You need a design engineer, you need a draftsman, or whatever the case may be. You need to make sure you find a person who is motivated by doing that type of work, right? You don't need to try to find somebody with high ambition, and with extrovert tendencies who likes talking to people. They're never going to meet. They're never going to be their best in a production type role, right? So, and that all that does is fail both parties, right? You as a company aren't getting the output that you need to be getting, and at the same time, you're not motivating this person. You're not bringing out the best of this person's traits. Um, the flip side of the coin is that if you're looking for a business development manager, or you're looking for somebody to do client interface, you need to make sure you find somebody who truly is motivated by that, who is excited by that, who, it's important to them. You try to put a producer out there, it's going to be kind of awkward. So having a well-defined hiring process, right, and being able to see, okay, when you're interviewing somebody, okay, you say this is important to you, but based on this, and this, are you sure it's important to you, or is this just kind of what you think you want, right? But you're not trying to think for people, but as a hiring party, you got to make sure that you're putting the right people in the right positions. So that's where using different personality tests is a fantastic tool. There's several of them that myself and other associates have used before. But that's a really big thing for me is making sure that you have the right people in the right seats. After that, it is fostering their growth, right? I take hiring incredibly seriously. Especially when I'm hiring a young person right out of school, or maybe a few years out of school, is because as an employer, you are directly responsible for building the foundation for these kids' careers, right? That first job out of school is where you learn so much about what it means to be an engineer, right? You learn what you like, what you don't like. You learn, man, I love coming into the office and doing design work every day, or man, I'm kind of getting burned out. I really could use some, interaction. And you start crafting your strengths, right? Because you're naturally going to be better at the things, that you're passionate about. That's an oversimplification, but I guess another analogy, you don't want to try to force a square peg into a round hole, So that's something that's really important to me. And then you got to give people opportunities to grow. You have to, let me talk out of both sides of my mouth. You have to make sure that you have the internal infrastructure available to make them successful. Give them the tools and resources they need to be successful. But you got to give them opportunities to grow, right? And that can be anything from talking to them, understanding, hey, what's important to you? What are some things that you would like to do that you haven't gotten the opportunity to do? Or maybe what are some of the things that you don't like doing, right? Because when you don't like doing it, it's going to take you longer. It's going to be like, oh, I got to get into this. I got to get my head right. You lose focus quicker. So take those and shift them somewhere else. Find somebody who does value whatever that task is and let them do it, because if you find somebody who actually likes it, man, they're going to knock it out way quicker and way better than, than somebody who doesn't like it. So, but people is huge. It can be the difference between a successful organization and one that underperforms or fails. I had a guy, great friend of mine, used to work for me. I'll give you an example of why people are so important. He's got 3 young boys. Okay, family to him is the most important thing. All right. He asked me one time. He said, "Hey, you mind if I cut out early to go to my son's t-ball game?" I said, don't you ever ask me that again, right? Like, don't you just go, right? And tell him I say good luck from everybody here, okay? What that did was it showed him that I value what he values, okay? It's important to me that he spends time with his family, okay? What that did for him was it created this commitment and loyalty and bond that can only, be achieved through a deep level of trust, right? He knows that I have his back, and in return, he's going to do whatever he has to do because he wants to, right? Not because I'm making him, because he wants to. It's now important to him, right? Because he knows that I'm going to have his back and I'm going to facilitate these opportunities to spend time with his family, right? That's what motivates him. That's what he values. So in return, man, he's gonna do things because he wants to do things, right? It's got to be important to them for them to overachieve, and it's kind of like a pendulum. You got to be good on your own 2 feet, and everything's got to be in order, right? You're too focused on work, your family and personal life's going to suffer, right? Too focused on family and personal life, your work life's going to suffer, which will mean your personal life's going to suffer. So that pendulum swings both ways, and whenever you're out of balance, it comes rushing back the other way the same distance. So, but that's my big thing is people, right? Giving them the right opportunities, putting them in the right places, and giving them the tools and resources they need to be successful.
Yeah, I love that. Like you said, you're not only hiring the right people, but I guess it's another leadership trait of seeing how they develop and how they can actually move them into the right position.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
For sure. I mean, like, you got to kind of, peel back the layers, right? You're kind of polishing a stone, for lack of a better term, right? Especially with with your younger hires, your less experienced hires, so not necessarily trial by fire, but seeing how they react to certain situations, and just learning more about them, because you got to know your people. You got to know what motivates them.
On that theme, I wondered if you could give us your insights on any particular leadership traits that you have seen in others or developed in yourself that you think are really important.
Probably one of the most significant leadership traits that I've seen out of really successful people and / really successful organizations and departments or whatever is emotional intelligence. Okay. It's empathy. It's being able to read situations and understand how best to mitigate those situations. So I'll give you an example. Employee walks in and asks for a raise. That's one of the worst situations a leader can be in, right? Because what they've done when they walked in and asked for a raise is confronted a perceived discrepancy between value and compensation, right? And that's the reason it's so hard for you as a leader is because if you say, no, I think you're good where you're at, they're disappointed. They're going to leave, right? Because they think their value is higher than what it is. So it's understanding, how your actions affects others, and it could be so small. I'll go back to the example of the my guy who worked for me about the T-ball game. What if I'd said no? What message would that have given? I'm certainly not going to get the best out of him. He's not going to be happy, and he's not going to be the best he can be at home, right? So it's empathy, it's emotional intelligence, it's being able to read people. That's where you can empower them, right? Everybody says you want all your employees to act like owners. It's never the case, right? Only the owners act like owners. But what you can do is empower your people, right? Based on, give them responsibilities of their domain, whatever it may be, right? It can be the smallest little task. No, there's no one task that's less important than the others, right? So give them responsibility, empower them, make them, let it be important to them, because if it's important to them, they will exceed your expectations every time.
Yeah, I love that. You mentioned before about changes in technology, AI. I just wondered if you could go
Yeah.
into your views on any sort of innovation or future trends that you think, apart from that, or including that, if you want to go deeper on that, that you think might be happening in the years ahead.
Oh man, that's when it comes to like AI and technology. As much as I try to, I don't have I can't even fathom some of the things they're going to come up with in the future, right? I mean, the fact that I can do a chat GPT prompt now to summarize, local zoning ordinance and it does it, is mind blowing to me. What would have taken me, 20, 30 minutes of research is now done in the blink of an eye. I think between the technological advances and then just the means and methods of construction now is happening so quickly, right? You're getting these new products. Just take the stormwater treatment products now, that are just really these innovative solutions that are they're reducing space, they're reducing cost, they're reducing maintenance, so really between technological advances and the means and methods of contractors and materials, I think that's really going to be some major some major factors that change our industry going forward.
Looking at your business, what are particular things you think you've done successful or you do successful as a business?
Oh man, that's a great question. The things that I won't say the things that we do well. The things that are important to us is kind of what I alluded to, at the beginning of our conversation, is doing right by your clients, right? Not being a yes man, not telling them what they want to hear, right? But truly being a partner in their success, right? So the things that we do well, the things that we try to do well, the things that are most important to us, being responsive, being transparent, right? Talking to them, walking them through the process. That's really important, and that's something that we place a lot of emphasis on. Personally, it drives me nuts when I try to call somebody and it's tough to get in touch with them. If I'm in a meeting and I get a phone call, I shoot a text right there that says, "Hey, I got your phone call. I'm sorry I'm tied up right now, but I'll call you back as soon as I get done." Right? It acknowledges that I see you, I hear you, right? And then you follow up on it, right? So that's one of the things that we really try to do well is place an emphasis on being a partner in our client's success. I think kind of the whole technology. I mean, you have to make an assumption that all licensed professional engineers are technically competent, right? That's the nature of having a license, right? So, what are the intangibles, right? What really does set you apart? What's your competitive advantage? And if you can center that around the people, then everything else will take care of itself, right? And so to your clients, it might be just one of several dozen active projects, on your docket, right? But it's their project. It's their one and only to them, right? And that's the way we look at it. Like every project should be their one and only, their most important, item on their list, right? And we need to treat it as such. We need to treat it with that commensurate level of respect and attention. So I think that's really the one thing that sets us apart. And look, we're eager, we're hungry, we're excited. It's high energy. It's like, yes, let's do this. Let's take that next step. Let's make your dreams come true. And I think that's really what sets us apart is we don't take anything for granted. We're excited, appreciative, grateful for every opportunity we get, whether it comes to fruition or not. Right. Some of the most satisfying experiences are when I've been able to help somebody that didn't result in a project for us. I had a meeting with a gentleman just the other day. And I was like, I'm not sure if this is the best fit for what you're trying to do right now. Now that I talked myself out of project? Yeah. But did I potentially save my client from spending a lot of money that wouldn't have worked in the long run? I'd like to think so. So that's where we gotta, uphold our responsibility to make sure that we are doing what's best for our clients.
Yeah, I love that. You got that positive approach.
Yeah.
I think it helps really, doesn't it, with the communication and managing expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that now, managing expectations. In terms of what is the most difficult component of what I do, or for me is managing those expectations, right? Anything from schedule, that's the biggest one, schedule, right? And the, overall outcomes, right? Managing expectations is something that to me is very difficult. And it has to start at the beginning of the project or the beginning of the relationship, really, is how it has to start.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So looking forward in the next year or so ahead, where do you want to take the business?
Oh, man. So I don't see this as growth just for the sake of growth. I think that's short-sighted. What I do know that if we stay true to our values, to our beliefs, and we keep doing the things that are important to us, the business will take care of itself. I want to be able to provide the best service possible to as many people as possible. I don't want to grow for the sake of growth. It's not important to me to have, to be listed on one of the, fastest growing companies in the wherever, right? What is important to me is how many people can I help, right? And I think at the end of the day, that's really what is really important is helping people, and that will take care of itself. So in the next 12 to 18 months, I don't have a firm, we have to hit this amount of revenue or we're not going to be successful. We have to hit these metrics. We have to have this number of people in this big of an office. No, I think it's in 12 to 18 months, are we doing the things that we need to be doing now, right? What can we and should we be doing now to ensure long-term sustainability and health in our company, right? Now that can take on a lot of different faces. One thing that I'm focused on right now, is diversifying the types of projects we have. Earlier in our conversation, we talked about a lot of our work being on the private sector. And that's great. A rising tide floats all ships. However, if there is some economic uncertainty, or there is an economic downturn, that spigot can turn off pretty quickly, right? So what are the other sectors that will still be generating projects, right? Municipal work, utility upgrades, federal work, any other service lines that can diversify your project base. So like I said, you don't want to be overly reliant on any one sector. You saw that in 2008, 2009, 2010, where in the southeastern United States, it was booming. Well, nationwide, development was booming, money was cheap. The good times will never end, and they did dang near overnight, right? And it caused a lot of firms to shut the doors. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do right now is position ourselves to grow and to help clients in different sectors, right? Because that'll allow us to better take care of our people, but also take better care of our clients too.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I wondered if you could just go into a bit more about what you just said there, because it's interesting as coming from being an engineering company, but you're still running the company. You still have to understand what the different markets are doing. I wondered if you could just go into where do you get that balance of like being aware of where the market's going, trying to run your business, but then there's the engineering work that needs to be done as well.
Oh man, that's it's a challenge, right? Where is your time most valuably dedicated? And I think it comes down to that is understanding what are the real what are the real needle movers, the things that I do that directly impact, the overall health of the company. And I think it is kind of, it's a balancing act. I'm not sure, there's a specific formula for it. But it's just like it's more one of those feelings for me. Like I know right now most of our 80% of our work is in the private sector, so it's kind of to me it's like, okay, hey, this is great. We're going to continue to do this work, right? We're going to continue to market that work. We're going to continue to execute the work, but let's also be focused on this right here. What could happen? What should we be prepared for? And trying to, like I said, get into other types of projects, different types of clients is the best way that I know of to make sure that we are sustainable. We don't want to be a flash in the pan. We want a solid, healthy company that where people are proud to work. They want to work. There's a certain connotation to it. There's a certain standard and expectation, and that's really what I'm focused on is the long-term overall health of the company. But you got to wear a lot of different hats. I mean, there's not one thing that I can't or won't do to help this organization, whether it's taking out the trash or being the one to go pick up lunch for the guys in the office. There's nothing that I won't do. I mean, I jump in, generating a set of plans or whatever the case may be. You got to be willing to do that, and you got to have that grit. You got to have that drive. You got to know this kind of sucks, but I have to do this in order to push through and make it work. So that's kind of the way I go about it. I'm not sure if I really answered your question that great, but at least that's what's important to me.
No, I think you did. I think you answered it well, because I love what you said. You've got to wear different hats.
Yeah.
I mean, you just got to do what it takes, because ultimately when you run the company, everyone's looking to you as well, and you're leading by example as well. So I think that's
well, and that's
important.
you have to lead by example. You can't be, you can't have a guy who's sitting in an ivory castle who doesn't want to get his hands dirty. You gotta make sure your team knows that you can and will do whatever it takes to help them and to help the company, right? That comes back to that earned respect. It can't be demanded. It's got to be earned. And with earned respect comes earned trust. And when you have those two components, you got people who are all pulling in the same direction, right? Whatever their individual responsibilities are, they're all going in the same direction.
Yeah, love that. So if there's any engineers out there who are like ambitious, want to start their own company, want to take that journey, have you got any advice for them?
Man, learn as much as you can. I mean, you got to be learning every day. I learn every day. I get amazed every day. I fail every day. But don't be driven by that. Be driven by, okay, well, now I know that didn't work. All right, I'm going to find a way to make it work. But learn as much as you can. Surround yourself with the type of people you want to be around. Right. You want to learn what it's like to have your own shop. Surround yourself with people who have their own shops or are on a similar path. You will take on and embody the attitude and the behaviors of the people around you, right? So stay true to yourself, always be learning, and surround yourself with like-minded people. And it sounds, again, an oversimplification, but add value, right? You got to start, everybody starts somewhere, but you have to add value at every level it is. There's your job description. You're responsible for this, and this. But then there are the little extras, right, that you can do that add value, that set you apart. And I think that's really important. The other thing that's really important is you got to have a vision, right? I know we talked about this earlier, and kind of in what's your why. but you got to have a vision. Like I said, for me, mine's always been freedom, right? So I didn't exactly know what that would look like. I didn't know if it was going to be me buying a company, starting my company, partnering with somebody. I didn't really know, but I knew that's where I was going. But one way or the other. So you know, I you can't beat grind. At the end of the day, when all else fails, hard work rarely does. Um, so I think if you are a young engineer, you do have ambition, you do want to start your own company, you got to grind. It is a daily grind. It's a battle every single day. You got to have your eyes wide open. You got to surround yourself with the right people, and learn from every single experience. I think some of the most valuable things I've learned in leadership and in business is from working for for people I didn't want to work for. Kind of in my opinion failed on the leadership side of things. So, but that taught me what not to do, which is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than knowing what to do. So, but going back to your original question, just having a solid work ethic and combining that work ethic and that grind with your vision, right? Be purposeful, be diligent, and you have to know how every step gets you closer to your goal, right? Like I started with a big firm working for design. I learned design. I went from there. I learned another component of it, right? Then I learned the leadership side of it, right? And then from there, the business development. So everything was very purposeful. And I could connect the dots. Like, okay, this is filling in another bubble that I don't have, right? Like, okay, I'm lacking business development experience or whatever. Okay, let me take a step that will get me exposure in business development. So, but yeah, it can just compounding your grind on top of your vision and never falter in that. Just you got to stay focused on that, right? So that's what I would tell them, And look, I love it. It's I haven't looked back. Not a single day or a single second have I had the thought of have I made a mistake, right? Have I made a mistake starting my own company? There's a certain level of pride that goes along with it, and but I would encourage anybody just if they do have ambition, grind, surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, I love that. That's really good insights there.
Yeah, yeah.
I love what you said about adding value as well, because I think if you always have that, it's like showing your intention.
Yeah.
Like your intentions, obviously dealing with people, like we said, you don't know how you're going to be perceived, but if your intention is to serve people, is to do the best, then eventually then that's going to pay off. So
exactly. There's several different examples that I could give about adding value. That whether it's from a client standpoint or an internal standpoint, man. I had a kid who worked for me several years ago, and on his own time he developed this spreadsheet that that really I can't even remember what it was now, but I was like, man, the impression was you did this on your own accord. You saw a need for this, right? It wasn't in your job description. Heck, all you're supposed to be doing is wearing out keyboards and grinding on design, right? But you took the time and the effort and the initiative to do something that adds value. I mean, that is the epitome of adding value. And you know what? That kid became my go-to, my right-hand man, for lack of a better term. I mean, but yeah, add value. Dude, what's that one extra step that you can take, right? And it's really not hard. It's really not. Just that one extra step to add value.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time today, Jay. They've been some really valuable insights there for anyone within the business.
Of it. And I wish you the best. I'm excited for future episodes of Engineered to Lead to come out. So I'm a big fan. Look, I just appreciate the opportunity.
So where can people, if they're interested in your business or finding out more about you, where can they find you, like website or socials?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on LinkedIn, Broughton and Associates LLC out of Fairhope, Alabama. We're website's also broughtonllc.com. You can email me directly, j@broughtonllc.com. But that's the best way to get in touch with us. So look us up, give me a call. I always have my cell phone on me, so I guarantee I'll give you a call back.
All right, great. Thanks again, Jay.
Sam, thanks so
Take
much
care.
for your time.